All right, so it sounds like we've got everybody here probably. So good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. We're so glad that you're here at our happy hour and you could attend. So as this is happy hour, I think everybody's got their drinks exciting. So cheers, everybody. Looking for a great day as we go through and we learn about Qlik Application Automation as we go along this. So as we go along, as you see some new cool feature or you learn something new, just raise a toast to the presenter who's sharing it. Let's have fun during this day and enjoy it. So as we kick off, Qlik Cloud has built-in capability to enable workflow automations called Qlik Application Automations, or QAA. This functionality can be truly a game changer across your organizations. Users can easily build in a visual, no-code environment integrations both inside and outside of Qlik SaaS that can help you drive and respond to impacts in your business, such as driving insights to actions. This can be done such as interacting with your CRM or your ticketing solution based on data or user events. It can also help you simplify your SaaS integrations by integrating to other SaaS offerings directly and automatically. And then also in like areas such as analytical DevOps by driving administrative DevOps functions that can be systematically updated to maintain your environment and your organization's data. A common problem across all of our organizations that we all face is the need for source control of our Qlik applications. These requirements range from those from finance to operations to regulatory needs. An automated solution is possible within Qlik Cloud leveraging QAA built in standard to Qlik Cloud. So within QAA framework, automations can easily be built to solve many of the common issues surrounding source control, including governance, security, and seamless application automation. Related to governance, when an application is published, it is critical to make a copy and archive that application. QAA can seamlessly do this into Git. This leverages all the standard features that we love about Git, including historical backups to restore at any time a previous version of the application. Git repositories can be organized in logical fashions following the Qlik Cloud space names that we use to enable backup management. Considering security requirements, the protection of data is another important consideration that we all face with source control. As part of the automation, we can easily remove all the data prior to backing up and enabling a secure and a smaller application to archive. This helps satisfy many of our risk factors related to the data privacy that impacts our organizations. Finally, with automation of workflows, one of the most important factors is that these events occur in an automatic fashion, and that is not dependent upon manual user action to occur. We've all experienced the problem where some manual step was accidentally skipped and nobody noticed. Using QAA, we can perform that source control with every promotion of an application to production, creating a closed loop source control system. So today we're going to demonstrate this as one of the, just using this scenario as one of the that we can solve with QAA. We're going to take all of your questions, and so please keep them to the end when we ask them, or you can put them in the chat window on the side of your Teams window that you're logged in with today, and we'll try to address them along the way as possible. So now let's go on to the cool stuff. Igor, you want to take it away?
Sure, absolutely. So let me share my screen. And okay, so here I am in my Qlik Cloud environment, my Qlik Cloud tenant, and let's explore one specific space and one specific need that we have. So we do have different spaces, and usually a lot of customers, they use shared spaces for their development efforts, and then once the application is ready for deployment, they then go ahead and publish that application to a managed space. So I've been open one managed space here that has a few demo apps. Let me show all of the applications. And let's say I want to do version control and also backup of applications that are published for productions, for example. That's one use case that we will study here. So that's a spaces, financial apps manage. And I want every time that a new application is published to this space, an automation will be triggered, and then we'll get that application, and we'll then upload this application to GitHub. I do have a GitHub setup. That's a GitHub that we use in our data science team. So we have these different repositories, and I want to use this GitHub to store this information, to store this application. And just to save space and time, I want to store the application without any data. And I can use the benefits of GitHub and have, in addition, not only a backup, but also version control. Let's say I have a second version of the same application that was then republished. I added new sheets, new stuff, change other things, and then republish to that space. I want the same automation to be triggered and then upload the same application again in here. But not only that, I want, just to make it easier for me to find and make the information I want the repositories inside my GitHub to mimic what I have in here, the same structure. So I want a repository that will have the same name as my space. So I want a repository called Financial Apps Managed, which I don't have yet on purpose. So that's part of the demonstration today. So I could simply create the repositories here and then do everything manually, but that's why we have Qlik Automation. We can automate everything. So it's better for data governance, and it saves a lot of time, and we can reproduce once we have new requirements, once we have new spaces, etc. This is one use case, but we can apply to any use case that we want. So we can then start, instead of showing an automation that is already built, let's have fun. It's happy hour. Let's build one from scratch. So let's use what I call the magic button, this green button here, great, click green, add new, that we can basically open the door for wonderful things. Qlik applications, machine learning, and a lot of things, including automation. So let's then create a new automation. So once I create a new automation, we have a lot of capabilities, and Qlik want us to help us build an automation, because there's so much we can do that if you've done this for the first time, it initially could be overwhelming. So we have pre-built templates that we can use to start from. So I can have, for example, and I can filter by categories. If I want to work at alerting, I have automations for alerting. If I want to do automations related to reporting, I have a few templates for that. Or let's say I want to integrate with Amazon S3 or ServiceNow or Slack. So we have a lot of pre-built templates. And one of my favorites, AutoML, which is now is being replaced to the new AutoML in the cloud. But I don't want to use any pre-built templates. I want to actually start one from scratch, so we'll see all of the steps needed. So I simply will create a blank automation. So let me click here, use template, and the only thing you need to start is to name this template. So let me call this Financial Apps Manage GitHub. You can write a description, but that is optional. So let's go ahead and save. And there we go. That's our automation. So that's how a blank automation looks like. So the first requirement to build an automation is to define how this automation will be triggered, how you will start the automation. So we always start with these block, the start block. And the blocks are how you build automation. So you have these micro actions, we call it boxes. And the box, they can get an input, and then they can provide an output. It's like a sequence of events, as you will see. But the main, the first one, the required one, is this start. I cannot remove it. I need this. because that's how you define how this is executed. So first thing is to define my run mode, how I'm running this. It could be manual, but just creating my automation and then I run it once I need it. So there's no rule for automation, so I just want to when I need it. It could be scheduled. Let's say I want to run daily, weekly. It could be trigger. For example, when something happens, when a reload test finishes, when another automation finish or fails, or something like that. Or in this case, we want to use something called a webhook. So we want to connect this to some service, and then we want to use that service to start to trigger our automation. And now there it comes the second concept involved in automation, which is the connector. The connector, and I can see here some of the my most recently used connectors, and we can see we have access to multiple connectors, is basically what type of service you want to connect to. Okay, that's basically the definition of a connector. And well, we want to trigger this automation when a new application is published to a certain space. So that sounds a lot like something Qlik will do. And not only Qlik, is the Qlik Cloud. So Qlik Cloud Service is my connector. Notice that the icon automatically changes to Qlik. And then I would select the event. How I will, what's the event that will be triggered to start this automation? The one that I want is app publish. Notice the name of this block, Qlik Cloud Services. Very generic. That's the connector. As soon as I pick the event app published, it automatically changes to app published. Great. So once an app is published where? To a certain space that we will define, this automation will be triggered. So that's how we define the starting of this automation, when this automation will start. So what is great, one of the many great things about Qlik technology in general is how they think about the interface. So if you're familiar with development in Qlik Sense, you already understand that Qlik Sense puts properties on the right and assets on the left. Same here. I got my properties on the right. So I click on that block, I have the block properties. So I need to define what space I'm monitoring. There is an option which is not part of this demonstration that I could simply start these automation based on either multiple space or I can start some other event and then loop through all the spaces. But I want to create this automation to one space specifically because then later on will be simpler for me to control and manage if I have one automation per managed space. So I can turn off one or the other as I wish. So let's then pick the space that we want to monitor, which is that financial apps manage. We need to provide a space ID, but I don't know the space ID, and I don't want to go there and get the space ID. Well, you don't have to. If you click here, there is a great tool in automation called Lookup. So we can simply search and find what we need. So let's type financial app manage. There we go. I start typing, I can search, I find the space, and then here's the space ID. I click on it, and then I got what I need, okay? And then if we move forward, I have everything set up, all of the properties set up in here. So that's a basic JSON thing, everything ready to go. That's just a trigger. Now I need to work one step at a time. I need to get my space information, then get what app was published, and then move forward. So let's get the space information. So then I'll go here to my assets, and then I'll find another block. So there are two important types of blocks. One is the get blocks. So they'll provide you information about an object, about something. In this case, I want to get information about the space that I'm monitoring. And the other one is the, do something, like set something, the actual action, like the output of something. So let's start with the get space about the, get information about a space. So I have this connector here, so I can go there and I can either search or I can, try to find it. And the one I want is called get space. So there we go. I can drag it. And as soon as I drag it, notice that it gives me the option to connect that with the previous block. So then I release it and they are connected. So they'll be executed in sequence. So once I get to the get space, then I can set up the get space, provide what space I want to get information from, and that block will then get all the rest of the information that I need. What is the space name? What type of space is this, etc. The only thing I need to provide is the space ID. Well, then again, I just informed the space ID. Why do I need to do that again? Well, you're right. You just informed the space ID. So I can come here and then I could do lookup again, or I can get an output from another block. So you build in pieces. It's like a puzzle. You build in different pieces, and the combination of those will make your full automation. So I can get.
Igor, to interrupt right now.
Yes.
Basically, you've written no code whatsoever. You've just dragged in a couple blocks, connected in, and you've got all the information. And now hook these things together, and you're passing them from one micro task, as you're talking about, to the next one with no code, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And thank you for your question, because that gives me opportunity to drink a little bit of my beer. Yes, absolutely. So I already have the space ID in this previous block, so I can simply come here and get the output from app publish, which is this one here. And then what I need is the space ID. So then I can go ahead and find the space ID, which I can find it here, space ID. So click on it. There we go. Now this get space block will get an input of the space ID, and as an output, as we'll see later, we'll get like everything that I need about this space. That is great. But we have a problem. Not in Qlik, of course not, but we have a problem with GitHub. The space, if we go back here, the space that we are monitoring is called financial space. The actual character space, apps managed. There are spaces in between the words. But GitHub has a limitation. The repositories in GitHub cannot have spaces in the names. They can't. We need to replace with something else. So if I get this name of the space and try to create a repository with the same name in GitHub, it will fail because it has a space on it. Geez, what can I do? Well, it would be great if I could create a variable and then use this variable, and in the variable, I'll have the repository name as I wish. Well, maybe we can. Let's go back here and let's go. You can search if you're not sure where the different types of blocks are. But because I know, I go to basic and let's take a look at, whoa, look at this variable. So I actually have what I need. So I'll drag this here. So they'll be executed after I get the space information. And what I want to do is basically get the space name. And if there is a space, a character space in the space name, I will replace it to something else, like a dash, for example. And I will store that information in a variable. Very good. So let me go to variables, click here, and I can type a name for this variable. So let's call it like V. You don't need to put the V, just because I'm old school. Big space, that's the name of my variable. You can define the type of the variable. My variable is simply a string. Look, you can create tables, objects, numbers. So it's pretty interesting. You can store an entire object like a Qlik app in a variable and reuse it later on. So this is pretty great. I'll click add new variable and then save. and I'll come here and select my variable. Good. Okay, I have my variable, but I need to define what is the value of this variable, which will be the name of the space from the get space, replacing spaces to dashes. So let's add an operation. And my objective is write 0 script. Let's see if we can get without writing any script by the end of this. So I click add operation, and I want to set the value of this space. Great. What is the value? Well, let's add a formula. So add formula. It's a text function. I want to replace one text to another text. Let's take a look. Do we have a replace? Yes, great. Replace. What is the text that I want to replace? Is the name of the space. So then I can go, the name of the space is in the get space block. So I can get the output from get space, and then I'll find the name of the space. So let's find name, there we go, name. And then the old value will be a space, so I'm just gonna type a space. New value will be a dash, I'm just gonna type a dash and save, and there we go. My variable v space will have the space name replacing spaces with dashes. Now I can use this to create a repository, and I'll be good to go. Very good. But there is only one reason that I want to create a repository, is to store an application there. So now that I have the space information, I need the application information. What application? Well, this whole thing started because an application was published to that space. So the app published might have some application ID. Well, let's find out. But then we need another get block, which is the get app information. So I'll go here and we can type get again. And then we'll find get. There we go, get app information, you drag it, and there we go. And the only thing you need to provide is the app ID. This looks like repetitive, but it's good because I know how to do lookups already, so I just keep going, and I'll go app ID, and then I have this app publish, output from app publish, and then what I need to find is the app ID. So then let's take a look. It's going to be in attributes and ID. That's the app ID because that's related to an app. That's the scope. So I click there and there you go. That will give me all the information about the app. What is the app owner? What is the name of the application? Whatever I need to know about the application will be all in this block. So every little block contains this little scope of information. That's what I call this. It's not an official name. This is how I call it. I call this like micro actions. Every single block has this subset of information that is relative to that particular box, but we can use anywhere. It doesn't have to be the sequence. I'm not limited to use only the previous block. Anything that is before that, I can use. Of course, I cannot use things that are in the future because this is executed in an asynchronous way, so it's one after the other, but I can use anywhere. So I'm in this block, the fourth one, and I'm using something that isn't the first. No problem. So I got the application information. Now I need the actual application file, the QVF file. So there is a block here, and that will take my application, will export my application, and right now we'll basically export my application to memory until I decided what to do with the exported file. But then we'll get my application, we'll export my application as an actual file, in this case, a QVF file, and then I can use that file to upload it to GitHub. So that's the action that I want, export app to base64 encoded file. That's a long name, but that's the one I want to export the application. And it's the same. I provide the application ID, and then this will get that application. Will be the same as if you go to the Qlik Hub and you click on the ellipses and next to the application name, and then you export the application. It's similar to that, but instead of exporting and downloading to your local computer, we're exporting to memory, and then we'll be using this block later to get this and send it to GitHub. So we need to provide an application ID. We can either get the application ID from app publish, or we can get from get app information. So we'll get from get app information, which is this, and then or app publish. I mean, it doesn't matter. And then we'll get the ID, and there we go. Or we could also do from app publish and get the ID from here. Then it doesn't matter. Actually, I did it. Two things. Let me clear their app so I don't have duplicated. And there we go. Okay, now I'm ready to interact with GitHub. So far, I only use, and that's how I personally do it. I use as much as I can as one connector, and then I go to the next connector. I have everything on the Qlik side ready to go. Then I go to the next connector, which is GitHub. I have the space name ready to go, which will be my repository name. I have the Qlik application. I have everything ready to go. Now I need GitHub. I need to bring GitHub to this party. So there is one connector called GitHub. So if we go to connector, because I use it often, it's in my connector. So it remembers my most used connectors. If it is not here, then you simply go down and you find GitHub, but it is here in my list. I'll go there. Now, it's the same logic. I'm saving an application to a repository, so I need to get a repository information. So again, it's a get, so get repository. But there is a problem here. GitHub, again, is not a problem that Qlik, is not a limitation of Qlik. It is a limitation in the GitHub API that is available. And this is using the GitHub API. GitHub does not, we don't have a block that tells me if that checks if a repository exists or not. So I'll simply try to get information about the repository, and the repository name is whatever we define in this variable vSpace. That's it. We'll see. If that doesn't exist, we'll handle it. Which actually it doesn't exist, so we'll see that. So that's a connector. So I need to connect to a connector. So there's something we didn't do yet, which is connect to something. We didn't have to do it in Qlik because we are in the same tenant. So I simply connect it. It's already automatically connected. But here in the GitHub, I need to connect to some GitHub repository. So in here, we'll go to connections. That's what we need to do when you're working with connections. And because I've connected with this already, it remembers, and it's under my user, so I can use this. But let's say it's the first time you're using, or if you want to connect to a new repository, you will click here, and then you will be prompted with the screen to log in with, well, it's already open. But if you're not logging with GitHub, you will open your screen so you can log into GitHub. If you wanted to log in for a different one, I'll have to come to my GitHub.
Qlik Cloud helps you out though there by keeping track of your previous connections, so you don't have to re-enter things all the time.
Exactly. So that's great.
That's cool.
Yeah. So either one is fine. So I can click either one connection. So all information that I have here is relative to this connection. If I don't have anyone, it will prompt something. I will log in GitHub directly, and then we'll retrieve that information. What user I want to use? So I want to use this default user that I have for that. So it's IPC-data-science. That's the one we use specifically for our data science projects. And then repository that I want to publish, well, it's the repository stored in this variable vSpace, which do not exist yet, but that's fine. So I will get this variable. So once you click here, you'll find the variable vSpace, and click the variable. There we go. That's it. However, if I run this, I'll get an error. Why? this repository do not exist. But that's fine, that's expected. I want this to run it anyway. I want this to run it anyway. So then I have to go to settings and define what do I do in case I have an error. So on error, I don't want to stop. I want to ignore and continue because I will handle this later. And the reason I did this was, well, probably because there is a limitation in GitHub, but it's because I want to show you something cool. I want to show you how you can deviate the natural flow of actions. I want to show you how to do conditional. So if we go to basic, you can drag condition. It's like an if statement. And you drag it there, and then your condition will say, well, okay, let's then handle the error. If the repository that we're trying to get does not exist, then we create one. And if it does exist, don't worry about it, just keep moving. So then my condition will be if the get repository, so we get the output from get repository, and we can get like anything. We could get like the get repository like name, for example, if that is empty. It means it didn't return anything. In this case, we know that it's because the repository do not exist. So that is true. So if that is yes, something, which is, let's then create a repository. If that is false, it means it's not empty. Then we find, don't worry about the no, just keep going. So let's say we don't have a repository, the condition then is trigger, it's evaluated, and then it will return a true. It returns yes, it means the repository is empty. What do I do? We go back to the GitHub, connection, and then we'll create a repository. In this case, it's called add repository. So I'll drag it here. Now, what is the name of the repository I want to add? Well, it's whatever it is in the variable v space. Click the variable, there we go. You want to add a description? Let's add repository created while almost, not yet, drunk. Okay, joking, I'm not drunk, I'm fine. This is all options. This is all properties you can add in your GitHub repository. Homepage, it could be your Qlik tenant URL. It's all informational. Is this private? I mean, just for demos, I'm not protecting this, so I'm not making this private. It has issues, no. So in case you want to do like ticket controlling and want to add issues in your GitHub, it has projects. I don't want to break down by projects. It's a very simple repository. I just want to store applications there. I don't have a wiki page, so false, and that's what I need. So if this condition is triggered, meaning the repository does not exist, it will create one. If the repository exists, then it will not go to this, and then we'll simply continue. What do I do if the repository exists and this condition is false? Nothing, don't worry about it. We are then ready to move to the next, and I'll say for this, what we propose is a final step. I'll have a little extra after, which is now we have the repository in GitHub. We connect to the GitHub. We have the Qlik application. Let's just then upload the application to GitHub. So then that's an action called create or update file content. So we'll take this. We add it not to the no, but to the end of the condition. So regardless if yes or no, after the condition, we add this, and is the same. What is the user? So we could do a do lookup and get the user from there, or we can type, so it doesn't matter. And what is the repository name? So the repository name we can get from the space or from these other conditions, but because the guide repository might be returning blank because it might be a new repository, it's safer just to get from the variable. And what is the path of the application or that you want to store, like the the from path where you uploading from. Well, I don't have a path. What do I do? Well, we have the app information. We have the app information. So we'll go to get app information and we'll get the application name. So we basically do the get the application name and save it with the same name. So we get the application name. There we go. And I know this is a Qlik Sense application. So the extension is QVF. So then I'll just simply type after dot QVF. Whereas branch, this is a very GitHub thing. So I'll just type main. If you go to repositories and you click it and you see that there's this branch here. So it's just the main one that we want to use. So I'm not breaking this down by different branches. Do you want to type any message? Let's say new app is now in Git, something like that. And what is the file that you want to save with the actual file? Well, that is from the export app to base64 file. So then we'll go there, the output from that, and I'll click there, and there we go. Our automation, if that's the only thing we want to do, it's ready. But I want to add a little extra. So let's say after I do this, I also want to send Microsoft Teams message saying, hey, the new app is published. So just because I want to use a third connector, so we can go and find a connector for Microsoft Teams. Is in my connectors because I use quite often. And we have a few actions here. The one that I want is send message. So we go to send message, and then I plug into after this, and then I'll find what is the team. And again, you go to connections, you connect to your team using your account. So then you inherit all of the rights that you have. So I have this already, so I'll simply connect that. And what is the team ID? So there's a limitation of this connector, not Qlik, of course it's not Qlik, but this connector. We cannot send chat messages to a person specifically, but we need to send to a Teams group. So I need to find the Teams group, and we created one for this presentation. So it's called QAA. I need to do a do lookup, and it's called QAA test. There we go. And then what channel I want to publish to? So let's just do in the let's do lookup, and it's the general. What is the content? You can type a text here, and you can even use the do lookup to put some information from the previous one. You can use HTML if you want to format in a pretty way or not. Just type a simple text. I have something prepared here. App publish in production, and that's the name of the app, blah, blah, blah. So I'm just going to use this. And that's it. That's, I would say, very simple. Not that very simple, but you know, it does a lot of things. But I did not have to write a single line of code. Now this is pretty. Does it work? Well, let's see if it works as well as the beer and wines and drinks we all drinking. Let's run it. Well, I'm running here, so there's no actual.
Fine, so I hope it works.
I'm sorry.
You said you weren't drunk. You said you weren't drunk and you're fine, so I hope it works.
Yeah, well, yeah. So when I run it, of course, there's no app being published at this moment. So simply get the most recent app published as a testing, and we'll use the app for test. So let me just go ahead and save, which saves automatically, but just go ahead and just make sure, and let me run it. And it's run it. You can debug it. The best option that I think is if you go per block. So then you see each block, the execution, and it's finished. And look at this. If we go to get, there is a get repository. If we check the details, Well, it doesn't show me now for right now, but it did. The get repository is the one that fails, but we continued anyway. And now let's go to the GitHub. Let me refresh this. Look, new repository. Financial dash apps dash manage. So I'll replace the spaces with the dash. We click on it. Oh, and by the way, let me go back. Let me show something. Look at the comment that we wrote there. So Qlik brought the comment. I click on it, and then I got the app. So this app loan analyze dashboard. It's an app was published 1 minute ago. Then if I click on it, I'll have the application information if I need to download it. Let's say in 2 months, I want to go back to this version because I made a mistake and I don't have any backup in anywhere else. So it's source control. You can come back here. You can download it, re-upload it. So everything's great. Now, if I load it again, so let me go back here. If I load it again, I will then, it's the same file because I didn't change anything. But if I reload it again, I'll go back there and I'll click on the application again. All right, and I can go history and I'll see I have 2 versions of the application, which is the same because nothing changed, but then you keep your source control. And now, because this is triggered based on app published in that space, and by the way, we can add multiple spaces. We can have one automation to monitor multiple spaces if we want to. It's not limited to one, but because we're doing once, one application, if a new application is published there or updated there, updated meaning a new version of the application arrives in that space, this will be automatically triggered and we'll receive a Teams message. Okay, and if we get to the Teams group, let me show you. So that's the Teams group. So that is 4:45, so 1 minute ago. That's the message that I got. That's it.
That was so cool, Igor. So basically, if I look at my clock here, just in about 30 minutes of time, you went from nothing to a full automation that took our application and at every publish automatically checked to see if Git had a repository, if not created it, and then did a backup. And so you governed it so that we can go through and now all applications, when they're published, will be automatically backed up. In that you remove the data from it, and it's encoded during its backup, and then it's fully automated. So I don't have to worry about anybody coming in and doing anything. They just automatically publish the thing. That's pretty cool.
And one thing that I use automation a lot, if I find there are gaps between either different technologies in Qlik or Qlik and other technologies, I can fill those gaps like this. From Qlik to GitHub and Teams, I can fill those gaps using automation. And again, no scripting knowledge needed. I didn't have to write anything.
That is cool. That is so cool. Hey, Kurt, with that demo, I think I hand it off. Hey, Kurt, do you have something to add to this?
I do. I'm not just wearing this hot dog shirt for fun, although I am. We're trying to make today fun. So, like I said, it got technical today. Which can be overwhelming at times, but we wanted to show you just a small sliver of what is possible within QAA or Qlik Application Automation. If you forgot, Qlik Application Automation, we abbreviate to QAA because we love acronyms. So when Jeff kicked it off, he said it's an extremely robust tool. What we showed you is just one example of all that's possible with this. I want to give you 1 or 2 other examples and a quote first. A quote from another customer. QAA is changing how we approach application development. If we had realized how powerful the tool was earlier on, we would have utilized it sooner. One of the use cases that I just heard about the other week when I was at Qlik World in Philly was that AutoML, which is another tool that we're talking that we had just kind of came out with this year, which is predictive analytics. they're doing predictive analytics on lead scoring, right? So deals are coming in around sales. Is it scoring it well? This looks like a great lead. They're then taking that in through automations to automatically create a sales opportunity within Salesforce, meaning less administrative work for the sales team. Another customer is running end-of-year incentives for the sales team. They've combined the power of Qlik Cloud reporting with automations to automate daily reports, and in some cases, multiple times a day, so that everyone can keep track as they're trying to just kind of have that competitive nature on their team. So as we're wrapping up this presentation, 2 next steps. We're going to put a link to a poll question around what topic you think we should cover next. And I have a different slide up, so if Andrew or one of you can pop that in, that would be great. If you can just take this, it's 1 question. We just like to know where to take this next and what you're interested in. And then we want to encourage you to reach out to either your Qlik account manager, if you invited by a Qlik account manager, or a contact at IPC for just a deeper discussion or a more personal walkthrough. Like, we know that this is an extremely robust tool. It's going to need a little bit more of a personal and technical touch from our teams, but we hope that this got your brain firing on kind of how to use this in your business. If you haven't made the move to Qlik since SaaS yet, maybe this is a compelling reason to make the move or to find out more. So we hope, in addition to all that we just showed you, that this Qlik socks keep your toes warm this fall and winter. And we're going to have the next few minutes for questions that you may have. If you need to go, thank you so much for registering attended. If your beer exploded on you, sorry about that. But we want to open it up for questions now. And you can put them in the chat if you don't want to go on unmute or wherever you would want to. We would gladly take them now. And Andrew put the poll in the chat too, if you guys can go to that. And we will do a follow-up email. No questions. Everybody completely understood and is excited to just into QAA full on. Oh, there we go. Matt Detweiler has one. Let me pull the chat up. Matt asks, are you able to get at the data load editor text from the tool? So I'll leave that to you, Igor, to answer that.
That is a great question. Not yet, unless you create an input file and you save in a space, but directly, not yet. But I'll tell you that I started using automation as soon as it was released, and we have way more capabilities now, so I'm not promising anything, but I don't doubt it. We'll have something like that in the near future. Like, for example, I use it now to integrate like Python with AutoML and other things, and things I was not able to do like 2 months ago, and now we are.
Thanks for that question. Anybody else? I will add to that, Matt. If you guys aren't aware, on the Qlik community, which most of you know about, community.qlik.com, because it was revamped a while ago, there's a whole ideation section that if you have a question, an idea, or something like, man, this would be really helpful, there's a section ideation under it, ideas home, suggest an idea. Great place to make some of the things or the struggles that you guys are hitting, like this would really make my job easier, because the more people do that, it moves to the top of the list of what they attack and go after.
Yeah, but the great things you can do, like you can interact with the application. Like we can create master items. We can create master dimension and measure items. You can there's a lot of things you can do. You can get like what the users are accessing this particular space. So there's a lot of things you can get. There is, however, actually there is a get load script action, but I don't think you can change it. But there's a get. To be honest, I never used the get load script. There's a get load script box, but I don't think you can change it. But you can get the information at least.
Excellent. And Igor, there was another question. Is it possible? This is from Dennis. Is it possible to connect another connector or cloud app, etc., that isn't listed in the list of connectors?
That's a good question. There is a possibility that you can, I would say probably not. No, I don't think so. If there's not something that is listed, no, I don't think so. Because I would say maybe there's there's a REST connector, but if something you can use a REST API, but Yeah,
So
but if not,
actually, if there is a REST API on the other side, you can connect to it. Actually, Tom out there, we actually did that going into a tool set called Vertical
using
Knowledge.
REST,
I didn't
yes.
have one.
Yes,
Yeah,
using
so
REST
it takes a
API,
little. It takes a little more work, but you can do it.
Yeah.
So the summation of that was, it's much easier to use QAA if there's a connector built, but there is a work. There's always a workaround. One of the things I love about Qlik, and I've talked about with, there's never been, and I don't know that this is true for QAA, but there's never been a data source we can't connect to. It just means that it gets interesting trying to connect to it, but usually doesn't. Oh, yeah, and then Ben.
Some of the things interesting you can do, like you can write Python code, for example, and which is not as needed as before with the full capabilities that was added recently, but there's a lot of great things you can do.
And Matt, I just want to make sure you saw that Ben responded to your question in there. Ben's one of our architects at Qlik, so.
And Dennis, this is Kristen. We could definitely have a meeting. I'm going on vacation, so if you want to chat with the team at IPC, in the interim to talk more about that. Sorry, the grandbaby's here. To talk more about the data sources, and the connectors outside of what's listed, feel free to do so while I'm away. Otherwise, we can always reconnect and get, everybody realigned and have that conversation.
So we have a comment here from Matt. I would like to get the tags from the load script into a div too. Oh, that's possible. That is possible. That we can do. In a perfect world, it would be amazing to set up a pull request to approve or to list out what data users are doing to an app. So we can get selections. There's a lot of things we can get from apps. So I think that will be possible. We just need to think about a use case, but I think all of the necessary pieces you need are available already.
Yeah, this has been so the idea of sort of building in some guardrails around sort of approvals, potentially as things get moved from one space, like a shared space to a managed space, you can definitely set that up using Qlik Application Automation. That was one of the original application automations that we used to demo at Qlik when application automation started to become a thing, is sort of setting up an approval process where people got Teams messages and then you could approve or not approve some of the changes that were happening to an app before it got published to the managed space or republished. So yeah, that's definitely possible, Matt.
Excellent. We have a few more minutes if anybody else has any other questions. And again, the poll was put in, so I'll post it again.
So Matt, the question about taking over alerting, actually alerting has a different kind of space in there, because alerting allows you for your users to kind of pull saying, hey, notify me when something happens. Let me go take action. That's that's one of the next, I think QAA, this, and the data movement are the three biggest things Qlik has done this year, but it's a good purpose. This automations, you can see all those micro tasks that went along, how you can chain them together. So, I mean, we just did one simple thing, go to Git, but through the same chain, you could also up a support ticket back into Jira to go through and trigger out actions and load the data back into your Qlik SaaS application, right? And so it serves a different purpose. You could do some quote alerting by it, but for your user to trigger alerts, I think you'd use the native alerting functionality that we built in the front end.
Yeah, this is all really exciting. I'm hopping off mute because I feel bad just typing. But yeah, we're traditionally, on-prem solution, right? Looking at the cloud once we get some other things done. I accidentally turned up my cloud account in looking for a license, so I'm excited about how easy that was. But yeah, this is really great stuff, guys. I really appreciate what you're showing tonight.
Very cool.
Mark wrote, "Will the automation order me another glass of wine?" That's good. I'm going to put that poll in one more time. Just
Honestly,
so
that's possible to do an automation.
You don't know me, Mark.
That's possible. There you go. So I put the poll in again. If you guys can fill that out, we're planning on having another one probably in January, February at some point. And there's always new stuff coming out in Qlik. There's some big things that have been happening, like Jeff just mentioned. So we want to make sure we're tackling things that are of interest. We know application automation, even in that quote I read, it's this big thing that people are like, it sounds cool. I'm not sure where to engage it or how to do that. So we want to just make sure that we're tackling things that would be helpful and move you guys kind of to the next level. I always talk about Qlik as an extremely robust tool that in many cases, not all, many cases people are using 30% of it or 40% of it. And we want to have something that's helpful to get you the next 10 to 15%. And we'll just keep doing that stuff so that you're making full use of it and it's hopefully making your job easier. We are just about at time unless there's any other questions. Went a little long, but they were good questions.
Can you export the automation? Yes, yes, you can.
And then Mark has a request for if it's cold in January to add a different kind of drink, a cider or a snake bite. I mean, listen, I can share a recipe ahead of time too. Apple cider and a little whiskey. And then there's this rum butter sauce that you put in that's made with far too much sugar. Oh, it's good. It's a warming drink on many different levels. So
We should do a barbecue webinar someday.
we're grilling meats, grilling hot dogs. I'll wear the shirt again. So
We'll have to wait till summer. Wait till summer.
there you go. There you go. Well, cool. We're right at time. Of course, got any questions following this, things that you think up, please reach out to us. I know that internally at Qlik and IPC, we'll be reaching out with follow-up. We recorded it, so we'll resend that link to you guys too if you want to go back and rewatch anything. But of course, we're available for comments. Thank you so much for joining us. We hope that you enjoyed your beverage if it made it to you and if it didn't explode all over you. Sorry, Seth. And we just enjoyed the time. We'll work on setting something up for the future. But thank you guys so much for attending. We appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Thank you.
I know.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.